All right, man. Let's go.
Sweating already. So I'm going to stay hydrated for the podcast. It's April 18th, the year. It's 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 764.
It sure is, and I know what we're talking about today, but frankly, I'm trying to stay warm right now.
Dude, don't even. That's just like a slow jab. It was warm here yesterday, but yeah, it's not going to do me any favors as I get ready for Texas, which is what our topic is today. But yeah, we just got a storm blaze through. It was really nice last night for the first baseball game of the season for Hayden.
I know you love that.
Well, yeah, he went 1 for 2, and we won last night. So, which is a nice way to start the year. But yeah,
first of what, 70 games?
Yeah, exactly. And then, well, we're in this like hard. This is the deciding year of, are you going to commit or are you not? Because this is the last year of machine pitch. Next year is kid pitch, and you only commit if you're going to do kid pitch, because that's when it becomes the most painful. At least in the machine pitch, you know the ball is going to be somewhere at least remotely close to the plate.
Oh yeah,
I see what you're
saying.
Yeah. And then next year, it's just like, how many hours of your life do you want to give away to sitting in the bleachers watching kids get hit by pitches and walks and strikeouts? And I'm not sure I'm committed to that yet. But you know what? That's a topic for a different day.
Yeah.
He's loving baseball right now. So whatever. Whatever. Kids, you do whatever you can for them. But you know, at some point, you draw the line. And we're going to draw a line in the sand today on how to prep for next week's Ironman Texas, and really any hot race you either prepared for or not prepared for. But before we get into that, if it's your first time listening today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general terms of apps. We appreciate you doing it today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcast. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking for their first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. We use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group, and you can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, and solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes way too complicated and way too confusing. We offer a safe, actionable space to get great information from seasoned veterans, and you can apply that to your own training and racing to help you avoid some of the same pitfalls and obstacles we've had along the way. And we go in there every once in a while, take questions from the community, do a bit of a Q&A, but that is it. We have no sponsors, we have no ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, and if you have a moment, please stop by c26triathlon.com and check out our new coaching staff. We got, 10?
Yeah, we're on 10
coaches there, eager to help you get through this weekend or next weekend or the season.
Or any weekend.
Or life.
Any weekend. You pick the weekend. Any weekend.
Pick any weekend, whatever. They're ready to help. So
yeah, great bios people on there. Some of their personal bio, and then a little bit of what I think about them as other athletes that I coach for the most part, and everybody. Just they're there to prepare you. And a lot of they're a great group just because they've been around for such a long time as C26 athletes, and they have the C26 philosophy at their heart, but they also have different personality, different life experiences. And I think that's ultimately what people look for in the coach, is they find someone that can articulate and communicate something to them that resonates, that kind of clicks, and how they, communicate that. Because you can quiz 5 coaches that all know the exact same thing and maybe even want to coach the exact same way, but it's how they communicate that. And then oftentimes too, do their life experiences resonate with you? A lot of athletes that are, have kids and married, they look for a coach that's, has the same kind of life demands because they get it, and they probably had to troubleshoot ways around that. And it's a little bit harder when you you're married with kids and a demanding job that's travel a lot, and your coach is single with no kids, and has a set schedule. It's sometimes hard to relate to that. So they've all got different life experiences and different ways of approaching things. So yeah, give it a look and look through the bios, and if we can help you pair up with one, please reach out and let us know.
Sounds good. Well, it also sounds like you are mentally and physically preparing for a hot weekend next Saturday.
Yes. So this is, for all things considered, this is basically this podcast today is going to be a kind of a look into if I was going to stand up and talk to our athletes who are racing and myself at Texas next weekend. So I had a lot of feedback, obviously, from but the one that we did back in Louisville that year, that it was like just insane. And the year we had everybody finish in insane conditions, and we kind of went through and talked through all the things you should do, all the things you should wear to stay. This one was for the cold. And I remember that day very vividly. We had everybody finish and had pretty good days. And then I think before the first person that came in that DNF'd came in from the bike before the last person was out of the water that day, because I remember sitting there watching. Was like I think was the last year, second to last year, Louisville, of the full, and they cut the swim short. It was super cold. It was very windy. You had people taking like 20, 30-minute transitions to get warm and put all their clothes on. Then you had some athletes like leaving transition in like low 40s, mid 40s in just their tri-kit. No armors, no arm warmers, no gloves. We even mentioned that, what was it, 2 years ago at Wisconsin. You saw, was it Ben Hoffman or Andy Potts who ended up?
It was Hoffman.
Yeah, it was Hoffman. Yeah, who went out at Wisconsin and wasn't warm enough, and it came back to bite him that day. So yeah, I mean, the weather is always impactful, and even this weekend. So again, this is exactly what I would say to our team, and what I am saying to our team right now. We'll send this out at our athletes that are doing Texas, make them listen to a ton. But if you're also doing Texas, know anybody doing Texas, pass this along, or even a hot race that you've either prepared for or not. Because currently the forecast there is very, very hot. The current forecast is going to be 90, humidity unknown. But it's going to be very, 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 very hot. Wind aside, it's going to be a very, very hot day. So no matter if you've done heat acclimation or not, I'm just going to kind of go through my general prep and how I would approach this race. And when you see a race like this, right? Because again, like people sign up for Texas, and even though they know it's going to be warm, you immediately think, probably a wetsuit swim in a protected lake. Check. Flat bike course with minimal turns. Check. Flat to pretty much flat with the occasional what they consider Texas rollers. Check. Like, it all screams, I'm going to have a PR. And then you're like, I know it's going to be warm and I can do some heat prep, and that's fine. Even if you've done heat prep, 90, I guess, living there and, in the environment, training in the environment is the best you can do. But that probably is, and I'd probably say for people that live in Texas, that's about 40% of the population that does this race. They live in Texas, and it's gotten hot there. But for the rest of us, like for this white pasty dude coming from Kansas, it's going to be a high of 50 this weekend. It has not been hot. So the things I've been able to do is like treadmill, hot tub, hot bath, no fan on the trainer, run on the treadmill with no fan, sauna. Like, you're doing the best you can. But when you see 90 and you know that 90 also says to me, this is me speaking as an athlete, but then I'll take that and apply it to what I would tell our athletes as their coach, and say, I immediately shove all expectations aside, which, to be totally honest with you, coming from a guy who has not probably put in his usual best training, is semi a relief, because I no longer can feel like I'm going to be disappointed at a result. And I'm not saying that by any means to say, hey, don't go out there and try to do your best. That's not what I'm saying. But as we kind of go through your race week prep and how I would attack each portion of the race, I want you to remember that whether it's an equipment choice, a hydration choice, a walk-run approach, anything that you do race week leading up to how you decide to attack and what to wear in the swim, how you decide to pace and what you decide to wear on the bike, to how you choose to start the run. 1 minute per mile difference, which is, I would say, probably the average, or at least a little bit better than most people, of the amount of time people bleed over the course of the 26.2 miles. Most people don't see like an 8.5 minute start and a 9.5 minute finish. They see an 8.5, balloon to a 9.5 at halfway, and then balloon to a 13 or 14. So even if all those choices, right, add up to you making a decision and you lose 1 minute per mile, these bad decisions, that's 26 minutes. Yeah. The likelihood is that you're gonna bleed, and that's gonna balloon up to 45 minutes to an hour and a half, or and for being honest, to a lot of cases, it's gonna result in a DNF. You're gonna get too hot. So I'm gonna walk through race week. I'm gonna walk through race day, how I would decide to prep, how I am gonna prep, and how I'm kind of getting my mind right. And again, it's not about not doing your best. It's not about mailing in your performance. But to me, I didn't have any expectations anyway. I know a lot of athletes do. And as I'm preparing for these like final few workouts, I'm focusing on trying to feel good. We talked about this earlier this week, but I'm also thinking about, now it's not about what watts do I hold. Now it's about how smart can I be? How can I be more intelligent than the person next to me? How can I be one of the ones actually running at mile 16 or 17 and not walking because I'm too hot? How can I put myself in the best position to do that? And yes, fitness plays a huge role, but when the conditions are really challenging, it is a chin up game. It is where are you going to leave your ego at the back in the hotel room, or are you going to still try and make poor decisions for the sake of again, what? Maybe saving a little bit of time here and there. So you got to get and again, some of that could be freeing for some people. It's freeing for me. And now what I'm going to do is go back to the days we raced in Louisville, where it was very, very hot. And I remember just walking the race, but you know what? This is going to be a hard day. All I got to do is be smart, and I'll be fine. And I think that's, again, the take that people need to go into it. And when it comes to race week, one of the biggest things that you don't need to obsess about is don't try to do any last minute heat prep the 4 to 5 days before your race. Monday, I would say, is like the last day, and make sure you hydrate well afterwards. If you're doing any kind of a heat prep or hot water immersion or sauna stuff, don't do it past Monday. If anything, just cap it off the weekend and then make sure you hydrate outside of that. But then a lot of people, that race week, I want to spend a lot of time in the sun. No, you don't. I need to get a little base tan. No, you don't. You want to stay as cool as possible. If you're adapted to the heat, you keep it for at least 7 days. So you're not going to gain anything. You're not going to lose. The only you're going to gain is getting hot. So get out of the sun. Try to keep your core temp as low as possible. Get off your feet. Don't be cranking up your hotel room to 80 degrees to kind of get you acclimated, and you wake up in a pool of sweat. Most of you are going to do that anyway because you're going to be so nervous. Don't do any of that. It's a Saturday race, so Tuesday, Wednesday, start really picking up the water. Thursday, Friday is when you start drinking on your sports drink, and that's when you start to be very generous. Again, on that Thursday, Friday, so 2 days before. Because what you don't want to do, and this is what Dr. Alex Harrison mentioned on our podcast when he came on, is hydrating is great, but hydrating without sodium is almost worthless, right? It's not just worthless. It inhibits your ability to perform and stay hydrated. So yeah, you want to put as much water into your body as you can on Tuesday, Wednesday, but then on Thursday, Friday, don't be the person walking on the expo with a gallon of water that's just plain water, chugging it, right? You don't want to be you don't want to look like the dude on January 2nd at the gym who's doing his sets of curls, carrying his water jug to make sure we all know that he's doing his water thing, even though they got water fountains there. But he wants to bring his jug of water. Don't do that, because you're going to actually deplete vitamins, minerals out of your system that you have. And if you don't have enough sodium, it's not going to stick. Those last 2 days before the race, it's time to do your regular carbohydrate drink that you would use during the race, or something that actually sits very well. Up the sodium intake. There's usually sodium intake in those carbohydrate drinks, and then salt generously your food. Don't care what it is, salt a raisin if you want to. Be generous with the salt. It's time to start loading that up, and then in addition to that, because I see athletes do this, I hear about them doing it, is they weigh themselves race week. If you're not putting on water weight the 2 days before a race, you're doing it wrong. So what you don't want to do is get in that race weight habit, or I'm putting on too much weight. You want to retain water, because guess what? You're about to sweat it out. You want to hold on to it. No, you don't want to put 16, tablespoons of salt on all your stuff, but be generous with it. Take a little bit extra salt. You want to retain that water. And I think a lot of people, if they go back and as we kind of move into the swim, and I'll be quiet for a second in case you have anything to add, is I think a lot of athletes just forget how much they sweat race morning leading up to the actual swim, and then how much they sweat during the swim, because you just don't notice it, right? We don't notice how hot we get. But if you go back to probably some of your training swims, and you've had the luxury, right, that we all have of swimming in a lap pool that's 82 degrees because they got to keep the old water ladies happy. You sweat a ton. You just don't know it. It's very, very similar but different mechanism as the bike, right? You don't know nearly the amount of sweat you lose in the bike because you've got the wind. That's why you take 2 steps on the run and all of a sudden sweat starts pouring from your face, right? You didn't just all of a sudden start to sweat. You just don't have the wind to dry it off your body. So that's race week leading into it. Again, prepare yourself with hydration. Prepare yourself with a little extra salt intake. Don't be standing out in the sun trying to get a little bit of a pre-burn. Before the race, definitely not ideal. And just make sure you're taking care of yourself, getting off your feet, and reminding yourself that all the training and all the work that you did prepared you for the day, but that ultimately it's the decisions that you make during the day to get the most out of that. And is it likely that you're going to have your absolute best fitness day period? Yes. Will it result in the time you want? Maybe not, because of the conditions. So just something to remember. And again, not detach yourself from your performance, because I think performance is measured in a variety of ways, whether it's execution, whether it's effort, whether it's watts, whether it's pace, whether it's overall placing. There's still a lot of ways to create your hierarchy of what you call the day as a success. And that just might mean shifting a few things around and prioritizing what's going to allow you to get to the finish line not just in a finish, but in a safe and reasonable time, to where the likelihood is that the majority of the field, I'll probably say 60% of the field, will probably shoot themselves in the foot before they even get off the bike.
Well, you said it, man. I think, when I think of heat acclimation, I think it helps, but it's not bulletproof. You know what I mean? So I just think you got to go into this race thinking and playing it really smart. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was at Louisville, because you mentioned it earlier, but so that was my, I think, second Ironman, and I had done Wisconsin the year before, and I had a really good swim at Louisville. You're in the water, you don't, the heat, it's early in the morning, it's not hot. And then you get on the bike and you got that wind and everything, and I had a really good bike. I got off that bike, I think, almost 20 minutes ahead of my Wisconsin time the year before. I was like, whoa. Because you're out there, you're spraying water on yourself, you got the wind in your face, and it's, a lot of that time is in the morning. Certainly in the afternoon, or, towards the end of the bike, it might feel hotter. I think a lot of that has to obviously do with sun. If the sun is out, you're probably more, you're probably burning and all kinds of other shit. But anyway, I felt really good off that bike, I thought. And then, like you said, when you stop, it's sort of like everything, the wind stops and everything. You're like, whoa, I feel a little bit hot. And I started running. So that, for me, the biggest mistake I made was, just kind of like racing it like I was racing a normal race. Got off my bike, ran out of T2 and ran that first mile. And by the end of the first mile, I don't think I've ever been hotter in my life. I was absolutely on the edge of heat shock, or whatever the hell they call it. And it was over, like you said. But I think, that heat acclimation stuff, you can, it's certainly, I mean, the problem with that is, like, I had been training outside all summer in Nashville, and I went up to race Louisville. I was in the same climate for months.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like the tricky thing, like going back and looking at it, and you're like, even if because I was thinking the same thing just yesterday. I was like, but we did Louisville. I'm like, but just remembering how hot it was. And I was like, dude, we were heading out, right in the hottest parts of the day. And wasn't like we went to like, across 2 time zones to a different part of the season. It was the everyday training stuff we had been in.
Right. So I just think it really goes back to your playing it smart. I mean, I think it's one of those things you almost have to consciously on the bike back it down a little bit, or whatever, and especially coming out of T2. And that's Maddie in the background.
She's giving you affirmation. I can hear her.
Yeah. She's barking at the workers outside. But anyway, yeah, so I just think it's one of those things where, we've talked about before how if you think, you're going the right speed, back it down a little bit or something, or you feel good or whatever. It's kind of that mentality a little bit. It's like, oh, I feel really good. Well, okay, just pull it back a hair. Kind of be on that edge of just playing it safe on that bike a little bit more. And then for me, if I ever did this again, I would definitely come out of that T2 in a walk run or some kind of walk the first half mile, something to let my body just kind of recalibrate and cool down, spend some time, because I was over the threshold and I didn't realize it, and then it was over. You know what I mean? So it's almost like you got to give your time a little bit of chance. And the same with the, just again, I don't know the science or whatever, but I just think if you warm up good in a logical sort of sense, slow, your sweat system probably works better. So to me, if you just kind of hammer right into the heat, there's no turning back. But if you can kind of like walk in and maybe just get sweating a little bit instead of just pouring out of you within a couple miles, you want to delay that as long as possible, I would guess.
Yeah, and I think like going back to, I've never thought of it this way, but just talking about how much you were sweating when you got off, and I'm the same way too. Like when you do that and you start your run, and you're just pouring sweat, the immediate thing you should think of is not the run, but is, holy shit, I've been sweating like this for the last 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's not ideal, right? Yes, you're replenishing, fluids along the way. Yes, you're taking in calories and electrolytes and sodium, but you should think, oh my God, like I've been sweating this much the last 6 hours. And how does that kind of feel, now that you can kind of like see how much you're sweating, how does that make you approach the last part of the day? So yeah, I mean, you have to have that mental shift, right? And so like when you go and you think about the swim, I don't know if it's gonna be wetsuit legal or not. I'm not that guy. I'm not in touch with, I mean, I know it's 74, 75 right now, but it looks like it's going to be, hot later this week, and then it's going to be hot. So I'm probably, honestly, I'm not even, and this is for me personally, I hate wearing a wetsuit in anything over 74. I just get warm. I just get really hot. And so as I give you these tips and how I'm going to choose to approach race day, everybody races their own race, but what I want you to remember is, we always use a phrase, Ironman is always about, it's not about how fast you go, it's about how little you slow down. And for races like this, that is even more true, but what will dictate how much you slow down is the mantra should be, how long can I race before I get hot? And the longer you can put off getting hot, because again, once you get hot, once you've reached your critical core temp, there is no going back unless you want to stop, right? Or slow down to a walk. That's it. And then it impairs your ability to perform. So for me, I would be shocked if it is wetsuit legal. And I know a lot of people, regardless of the water temp, whether it's because you know how Ironman does it. They get out in the boat and they go out to the middle of the lake, and somebody accidentally scoots over and knocks over 16 Yetis full of ice cold, ice chips. Then they drop the thermometer down right on top, and they're like, oh, good news, triathletes, 76.1, your race is wetsuit legal. And the cheers come in and the reviews come in. Meanwhile, the actual water temp is probably like 78. So, and even if it's over 76, you obviously up to, I think, 81 and change, 82 and change, you can still wear wetsuit. Anything over 82, you can't wear it. It's not safe. So whether you decide to wear a wetsuit or not, either below where it's in, regular range, or you're going to be one of the ones in the last wave wearing a wetsuit. And I get it. A lot of people wear a wetsuit not as much for speed, but for what they feel like it gives them a level of comfort, right? And I would caution you to think through how much hotter that's going to make, because I think the low is like in the low to mid 70s. And if humidity's high and dew point's high, you're going to have your wetsuit on and a swim cap on. Think about how hot it's going to make you just to start the bike. I don't even think I'm going to bring mine. I don't even want to be tempted. I hate wearing mine anyway. And I'll eat a slower swim time. I would have guessed. I'm guessing. I'll probably throw out a prediction. I can probably swim it with no wetsuit, swimming as easy as possible. I'll probably actually be in like the 104 to 107 range, which will be easily my slowest Ironman swim ever. But that's my goal, is how slow can I take this swim? How long and strong and easy can I take my strokes? How cool can I stay during the swim and not get hot? Period. Because the air you're going to be breathing in is going to be warm. You're going to be warming up as you swim. The body of water is going to start to feel warm. The best decision you can make is to tell yourself, like, is it, again, like we talk about with pacing, ask yourself, is it worth it? For me, as a pretty good swimmer, to wear a wetsuit, I might save 2 minutes over the course of a full. To me, that's an easy calculation. It is 100% not worth it to wear it, because I'll just get hot quicker. I'll expedite the process of getting hot. Again, the name of the game is how long can I put off getting hot? Now, not how quickly can I get hot. If you're a slower athlete and you might save 4 to 5 minutes, to me, that's still a tough call. Again, personal call. Some people just don't think they can swim without it. I get that. But just think that through. Is it worth it? Or maybe even, because I think if it's wetsuit legal, you're allowed to wear your little sim shorts. Then wear those, but don't cover the top of your body. Or think logically through, is that what you're going to do? And definitely don't overswim. Please don't overswim. Most people overswim anyway because their lack of preparedness in the swim. But again, your zone 1, zone 2 is now going to turn in the pool is going to turn into an overswim of zone 3 effort and its impact on your body inside of a wetsuit with the swim cap on, for some people from 53 minutes for the fastest age grouper to 2 hours. I want you to think about that for a minute. In the course of the day, think about being in your wetsuit for an hour and from 52 minutes up to 2 hours. I'm not going to tell you your race is over, but I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to be so hot by the time you get done with that, and you're going to be so behind on electrolytes and sodium, it's going to be very difficult to catch up. So think about that. Run through scenarios, whatever you need to do, but I would caution you against wearing a wetsuit not for safety. Well, yeah, for the sake of the last part of your half marathon. And because again, the run always gets the blame, right? It's the last thing we do. I gotta do more speed work, man. I gotta increase my long run. And you go back and look at spending an enormous amount of time in a wetsuit in hot water. Again, not just hot water, but hot ambient temperature. It all starts from every decision you make. The good and the bad starts with the first stroke in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be under control. I mean, when I think about, I don't care what temperature is, if I have a wetsuit on, I'm always pouring cold water and ice water inside of myself while I'm standing there waiting, because I want to get cold. It's cold. I want to kind of have a little chill to me before I get in the water. And I don't know, that's just what I do. And I think about that same principle when I get on the bike. I'm usually ready to load up with some ice water and just kind of pour it all over me before I even start riding, and kind of, obviously at Wisconsin, that when it was 50 and it's raining, you don't have to deal with that. But I always like to kind of get as cold as I can when I start that bike, because, the short-term uncomfortable factor is, it's something you got to get through usually on a lot of, early season rides, but to get through that and then if you can get your core temp down just a little bit. And that was the thing that I didn't do when I should do it the most is before the run, is just take that time, because like you're saying, man, 4 or 5 minutes saving in the swim, and then you get out on that run and you're absolutely demolished, and, you burn an hour. I mean, I was, like I said, I was 20 minutes ahead of Wisconsin time off that bike that year. And I think I was an hour longer or something overall. So it goes away quick, man. But I think there might be something to be said for that. I've done it before where it's harder to do in a full because you can't really time it. But I've left a big bag of ice in a 70.3. And when I came in T2, it's melted, but it's cold as shit. And I just dumped the whole thing on me before I start the run. And, whether or not that really does lower your core, but it definitely takes sort of an edge off of the heat, and it kind of slows you down a little bit. And I think that's really where you got to have your head, is coming out of that run, just kind of that fast transition mentality that a lot of us can have. You're so excited to get off the bike, and then you get in your run clothes and you're ready to run. It's like you're not really ready yet. Give it a little time, slow it down.
I mean, you led me right into what I was going to say next. So I think everyone that's doing Texas should go back and watch the PTO 100 Singapore race from this last weekend. No wetsuit swim, insanely hot. And Sam Long got second place. He came out of the water 4 minutes behind, I think, the leader, the guy who won. He was so far behind, it was unbelievable. He gets the transition. He takes an entire bucket of ice water and dumps it down his body.
On your head.
The whole thing, just to get his core temp back down. Period. Dump the whole thing. So that's again something that I'm not going to take like a bucket and transition, but I am going to have like an ice water with ice in it that I can take and pour down my back and pour down my chest before we even get on the bike. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to walk from the swim exit all the way until I get to my bike. I'm immediately going to try to start to get my heart rate down and not raise my heart rate up. I'm going to get to my bike and or get to my transition spot. I'm going to dump water down my neck, down my front, down my face, try to cool me off a little bit. That's how I'm going to get ready and slow myself down. Remind myself again, it's all about the last 10K half marathon of the run. And it's not about how fast I'm going to go. But it is. But the reason I will go, I won't slow down as much as I normally would be because I hopefully delayed being hot for as long as possible. For the bike, I am wearing arm coolers. I'm going to keep the sun off my skin as much as possible. I'll put a lot of sunscreen on my neck. I'll put a sunscreen on my legs. I'm going to have, my sleeved kit. So going down to my elbows. And then another, again, not controversial because that's way too dramatic. I am not wearing an aero helmet. I hate having my ears covered in general. And those, you fry in most of them. Even the ones that they promote as somewhat breathable are not. And again, going back to watching Sam Long, he was the only one that got on his bike in last place and threw on a road helmet. And I'm pretty sure he had the fastest bike split of the day. Everyone else wore aero helmet. He wore a road helmet. And almost certain he had the fastest bike split of the day. If not, it was lost by like 10 seconds. But he didn't have any moto pacing or drafting up the lead pack like they did quite a bit up there at the front because for whatever reason the PTO is terrified to call it drafting penalty. So road helmet. I'm wearing a road helmet. Again, am I going to give up 2 to 3 minutes over the course of an Ironman by wearing that helmet? Oh, for sure. But who gives a shit? I would like to be cool for as long as possible. I would like to dump water all over my head, all over my face. I want wind in my eyes. I want wind in my nose. I want wind where I can take wind. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm hoping Mother Nature doesn't make it too windy, because then that would also make it a little more challenging. But I want to be able to stay as cool as possible. I want the heat to dissipate from my head as much as it possibly can to keep me cool. There is no part of an aero helmet that keeps you cool. The only time I want to wear an aero helmet to combat temperature is when it's too cold outside. I want to wear an aero helmet to cover my ears. I don't want it frying me out there. So I'm going to go, again, just regular shades, regular road helmet, and try to stay as cool as I can for as long as I can. I'm sure you'll see a lot of people out there with their aero helmets. They want to gain some time, but I just, I don't know where the math is on that. Don't ask me, because I can't tell you. I can't imagine I'm not going to save that in beats per minute in core temp. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go strictly by heart rate. I'm gonna have a gander at watts every once in a while, just to get an idea of what my feel is. But I'm gonna go by heart rate, over the heart rate and feel. For races that are really, really, really hot, I'm gonna use watts and pace, not as an accelerator, but as a brake. Am I pushing too hard? Am I going too fast? And I'll give myself some limits. Like, do not go over the first 80 miles. And then by that time, your heart rate's going to have drifted so much, you're like, yeah, you know what? I need to slow it down a little bit. And especially for long races that are hot, one of the best pieces of advice that's so simple and so non-data driven is, in an Ironman, if you think you're going too fast, you are. If you think you're going just about right, you are. If you think you're going too slow, you're going about just right. And that is like so simple. And when you think and you're racing, you're like, God, I feel like I'm going so slow. And you're like, I'm probably going just right. Damn it. And that's what you have to do. Because again, let's say you wear an aero helmet and you bike and you're saving 2 or 3 minutes, and you bike your normal bike speed, and you gain 10 minutes. You got 13 and change. Let's say you even wore a wetsuit, and you gain 10. Now we're up to 15 to 17 minutes. I guarantee you, over the course of your marathon, unless you're coming from like, a climate that's 120 degrees and this is like cold for you, you're definitely going to bleed that 17 minutes back, if not twice that much on the marathon. So when you get out on the bike, stay hydrated. Each aid station you hit, water, ice, water on your neck, water on your face, water on your quads, water everywhere, ice everywhere. I would try to have your bottles and special needs frozen overnight, so when you get to them, they'll be cold. Highly recommend, honestly, if you come to aid stations and they have ice, because again, one of the huge pieces, right, of not just keeping your core temp from raising up is keeping your core temp down. So starting the race with cold water is crucial. And then if you see aid stations that have ice, I'm not going to tell you that you have to stop, but I would highly recommend taking a minute to top off your bottles with cold ice to keep your core temp warm. Because lukewarm water ain't going to cut it. So if you can get ice, get it. Again, when you get to special needs and you get to refill everything. If you drop a bottle, go get it. Please go get it. If you miss an aid station, stop and go back. And don't go, but do not go at all without water, right? Obviously, this is a flat course, so weight doesn't matter nearly as much. Who cares about how much water you're carrying on board? I'm going to lose like 2 or 3 watts with my 32-ounce water bottle on the down tube. No one cares. And you can think about that the last 10 miles of the run, we've overheated and walking the whole way. So again, it's just a long warm up, where the name of the game again is how low can I keep my heart rate and how cool or not hot can I stay?
Yeah, and you were talking about that aero helmet and having access to wind to the head. As I talk about a lot, I do a lot of cold plunging, and I rarely go under. But the difference between when I go under and get my head wet and not is unbelievable. So my point here is that I think that has a big impact. So whenever I go through bike aid stations, I always, try to grab, I always grab the last cold water, and I just slow down a little bit, and I just drench myself, and I really go in on the head. And the same with the run. And we've talked about this before, running caps versus like a mesh cap. I put it backwards and I put ice under it. And that seems to be a big deal. Because my point here is I think that if your head is hot and you're not letting that stuff escape through your head, that's a huge, huge part of it. You got to figure, a lot of times in these hot races, I end up taking my hat off. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it depends, hopefully you're not completely susceptible to getting that really burned, but it's just cooler to me. And so I just think we got to pay attention to keeping the head cool, because it's really where it seems like a lot of it, the heat tries to get out of there, right? So it's like, let it out. Don't smother it with, a hot ball cap or one of those, flat bill, deals. It's like,
oh my gosh, no kidding.
You got to keep your head cool. I think that's sort of the thermometer for the body in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's again, it's going to be like every athlete is going to like cringe at not wearing a wetsuit or an aero helmet, like the things where you're saving like tons of speed. And it's like, man, like, again, just think about it. Like, cover your arm coolers, put water all over your arms, stay as cool as you possibly can, finish the bike and think, what, I'm hot, but I'm definitely not as hot as if I had started the bike, 10 degrees warmer from, wearing a wetsuit, and then another, 10 degrees hotter from wearing an aero helmet, and because I'm telling you right now, you're going to see people walking in days down the first 5K. And again, we're not just talking about staying cool to be cool. We're talking about staying cool so you can consume as many calories as you want to as well. Again, the more external and internal stress your body is under, the harder it is to take in calories and fluid. So if your core temp is insanely high, you're going to see so many GI issues on the bike and the run, because it's going to be so hot. So again, think about all those things as you prepare for the bike, and just be smart about it. Don't make a stupid rash. Oh, I'm gonna hammer the bike and try to make up those minutes. The last 30 miles, you're gonna be in for a world of hurt. Yeah. Over hot, overheated, underfueled. Period. So you're not gonna have a good run. Heading into T2, again. Getting off at T2, obviously, even if you did set a frozen water bottle out there, by the time you get back, it ain't gonna be frozen, it ain't gonna be cold anymore. But I would still look for immediate relief to get yourself cool, right? All over your face. I'm probably gonna keep my arm coolers on. I'm gonna put on my shoes, and I'm gonna put on my shades. I'm gonna try to wear like a headband that I can keep cool, and then I'm gonna wear one of those neck things. The neck. What do you call them?
Gator.
Did you say a hoodie?
No, gator.
Yeah. I'm gonna wrap like a little gator on my neck that I can dump in, hopefully an ice bucket that the wonderful staff at Ironman will hopefully have at all the aid stations, and duck in and keep my neck warm. And cool. My goal will be to, again, keep my head cool and let some heat escape, keep my neck cool, keep my forehead cool, all the main places that kind of help you keep cool. And that's how I'm gonna start the race. And again, going back to like having somewhat of a relief, I'm no longer going to attack it as I wonder how long I can run this. I'm going to think, what's the best effort I can do with my heart rate to make it to the first aid station at mile 1? And then when I get to it, I'm going to walk. I am 100% going to walk. Keep my head cool, keep my forehead cool, keep my chest cool, take in some fluids, keep my heart rate a little bit lower, keep my heart rate from getting to where it's never going to come back down again, leave the aid station with ice in my hands, and maybe even carrying a water bottle. And then I'll do that every single aid station until who knows, till I have to maybe walk more than just the aid stations. But again, it's going to be the game is going to be about just walking the aid stations and staying cool and getting cool, keeping your heart rate down, making it easier to consume fluids, making it easier to consume calories, taking in enough sodium, right? Taking maybe a bottle in between. Again, if you're going to take a bottle in between, when you get these aid stations, grab ice, grab water, dump in the bottle, and then spray it on your face and your neck in between aid stations. Keep cool. And again, because like I always tell this to people when they talk about staying cool on between aid stations, it's very, very similar to setting a time alert, or excuse me, a distance alert on your bike to make sure you fuel. And I had this conversation today is, yeah, I put I put every 5 miles, I put, every 5 miles alerts me to eat or drink. And I'm like, that's just a really bad way to approach things, because 5 miles downhill with a tailwind might take you 12 and a half minutes. 5 miles on a hilly course into a headwind might take you 28. So you can't do it like that. Same thing goes for running. Like we think about cooling. So, I'll wait to the next aid station. I don't want to carry a bottle. Okay. Well, when you decide you have to walk, instead of making it from aid station to aid station in 9.5 to 10 minutes, now it's going to take you 17 with no water and no ice as you walk and bake in the sun. Oh, but yeah, God forbid we carry a water bottle in between aid stations. Whew, what's that going to cost you? 3 to 4 seconds per minute mile? That's going to be the least of your problems. You're thinking about cutting off like 30 to 40 seconds per minute mile. So that's, again, I'm not going to be winning any wardrobe awards for coolest looking kit or crispest looking flat bill hat with, Pit Viper shades and looking good, but I'm sure as fuck gonna try to stay cold as long as I can. And that, again, like that has to be your first thought. And it can't just be again, that's why I kind of walked you through race week all the way up through the end is that has to be the name of your game. And that's also not a guarantee that that's going to work perfectly for you. But at least you'll know you did everything, because again, your body responds so differently on just a perfect training day in perfect conditions, right? You wake up, you ate right, you slept right, your stress is low, and you go out and you have a crappy workout. And the next day, stress is high, sleep is terrible, had a great workout, right? Your body's unpredictable, even on the best day, even the most controllable circumstances with the most, stress-free environment and temp. You still never know. But so that's not, again, guaranteeing you the best race, but it definitely increases your percentage of getting the most out of yourself that day and getting across the finish line. Because what you don't want to say is when you get to mile 20 and have to start walking and know you got 10K of a death march in the blazing hot sun, you're walking 20 feet out of the way to find shade and cool off.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to have that and think, man, I really, really screwed up at X point. You want to, if you get to that point and you just can't keep fluids down, you're having a bad day, which, listen, in those conditions, Ironman, everybody's going to go through a rough patch. It just depends on how long it's going to be. At least you can say, you know what? At least I did the best I could today with my decision making. Because it's going to be very little impacted on your fitness level, and instead how smart and intelligent you decided to be, starting right now. And that goes with, approaching your head.
Yeah. Me, I'm a mental guy. So just, you got to be calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah. Cool being the operative word there.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can calm your brain a little bit, that's energy. So
it is.
Stay cool.
And put that energy towards, other things like preparation and maybe a mental shift and reframing what success actually is. And who knows? Maybe the cold front will swoop in from Montana and we'll get to race in 75-degree perfect temps with no wind. Yeah. You never know what'll happen these days. But
could happen.
Could happen. And even if it does, now you have this podcast to put in your back pocket for the days that it is going to be hot. Because again, even if you're racing, maybe you're doing Louisville 70.3 in August. Again, you can prep in the heat, you can do everything, but they also the likelihood is that the majority of you don't actually go out and train between 2 and 6 p.m. Right? The hottest part of the day. You get out and train at 6 a.m., right? Or when the sun goes down, or where you train inside. So again, it's a huge advantage that's why you see this race, like so many athletes do well at this race that come from South America. They come up and do this race and just absolutely whip ass. And same with people who live in Texas, because you got that, not that home court advantage, but that home court temp advantage, it's a huge advantage to all of them. So anyway, that's all I got. Looking forward to seeing everybody down there next week, and staying cool. I won't see too much because I'll be inside my hotel room trying to soak in all the air conditioning. they'll be out there. It'll be a good day regardless. Hope you found this podcast helpful. Hopefully apply it to your game plan, whether it's this race in Texas or a future hot race. And again, make your own strategy, make your own game plan, but leave the ego in the hotel room. Actually, just leave it back at home. Don't even pack it, and then make the best decision you can. Understand that you'll increase every percentage point you'll get from making good decisions. You won't lose them. You got anything else to add?
No, just wish everybody good luck down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch.
Maybe walking around in one of those like straw luau hats like Tommy Bahama.
I might do it. I'll be relaxing, having a good old time.
And being really glad you're not racing, I bet.
Yeah. I'll probably be wanting to race when I'm watching, but
Yeah, I'll ask you that I'll ask you that at the half marathon turnaround the run. Because that's not. I usually get the same feeling as the day starts when I go up to watch you guys at Wisconsin. I'm like, man, I wish I was racing. The music's bumping. You got a little shoulder move going. People exit in the water. You got the cheers. You got some chills. People get off the bike. You're like, yeah. And then as the run happens in the last part of the day, you're like, fuck, that looks terrible. And that looks really bad. Because again, if you're spectating, take the same approach. Stay as cool as long as possible. And do yourself a favor. Stay in the shade. Post up along the river walk there and or the waterway. The river walks in San Antonio. But get you a little table outside of one of the restaurants. Have you a couple margaritas. Stay in the shade. Then when you see your athlete come by, run out, give them support. Tell them they look terrible. Tell them they have a long way to go, and then run back inside and have chips in the queso for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna cozy up to some of those VIP tents or something.
There you go. Yeah, just flash your little C26. I'm like, oh man, you're Mike Tarrolly. Come on down.
Yeah, I'll be in cuffs.
Am I?
I don't know.
You never know, man. You never know.
Yeah. Maybe we'll be top 5 of the Tri Club down there or something.
I doubt that. You got team ambassador Tri Gear that has 6,000 people on their team across the globe.
All right, well, that'll do it.
That'll do it, man. Have a good weekend. I'm off all next week. We'll throw up a little bit of a couple of reposts for you guys to soak in, and we'll see you guys down in Texas.
All right, buddy.
See you, dude.
Stay cool. See ya.